Hey guys, Demon Monkey here. I wanted to make this video to talk about OL Season 1 wrap-up, the roster shuffles going on heading into Season 2 and our expansion tournament, and then lastly, the promotion relegation tournament itself. So the first thing to note is OE Mega 3 had a clean sweep through playoffs, going 6-0 across all their games, 3-0 in two series, the first one against G7 Mirage, and the second against OE Ember in the finals. And they were able to get through these games mostly with ease. Some of them went on a little longer than most games should, you could argue, for the current meta. But they were still able to close it out, and OE3 really showed that they were the most dominant team throughout all of OL in Season 1. And the big reason that I want to bring that up, that I think it's important, and it's actually a big discussion of what we're going to talk about today, is that we're going to be talking about a lot of rosters today, heading into Season 2. And one of the big things that happened in OL Season 1 is every playoff team, except OE Mega 3, swapped players in and out of their rosters. And OE3 was the only team, to my knowledge, that made playoffs at least, that kept the same roster from the very beginning, and didn't change any of it. And I think it really goes to show that if you invest in your players, invest in your roster, and you don't just swap them out. And I know like roster stuff happens, but as long as you sort of try to maintain the same roster, sometimes that can go a long way to building cohesion and something you really want, desire, and need. Definitely the standout players on OE3 were Light and Havoc in the bot lane, and they sort of carried OE3 all the way through to making them the grand champions. Next thing I want to discuss here is we can take a look at how each of the rosters have changed. So something you'll note on the top of this spreadsheet here is Prey Storm came in from Academy. They're the auto-promoted team, so they're highlighted in green. Mega 3 was the champions. They're highlighted in gold. If there is red marked, they are a relegation team, and all the other teams were playoff teams. So I want to talk about each of the changes. Up here at the top is the rosters they had going into playoffs and at the end of Season 1, and this is so far what I know, to the best of my knowledge, to be the rosters we're going to see coming into the expansion tournament or Season 2 in general. So the first few big notes: all of OE3 has disbanded other than Pata. We will see if he remakes that team, how strong it's going to be. Ember, who is our second place team here, they lost Lunar Del Rey and Red Flame. Lunar was a big catalyst for them in all their victories throughout playoffs, so it'll be interesting to see how Blazing Cake plans on rebuilding that team. Spooky Midnight rebranded to Stratosphere down here at the very bottom, but one of the biggest things to note about them, they retained all their players, and that's huge because Spooky Midnight was around the top. They were actually the number one team for the longest time throughout Season 1, the regular season, not going into playoffs. And the fact that they've retained all their players, like I mentioned at the beginning, is actually a really big thing going into Season 2, and we'll see how they can grow heading into Season 2. I would rate them as a strong favorite going into Season 2 to take the whole thing. Big Banditos mostly retain their roster. One of the biggest things you see changed, you can't see it here, but North was the mid laner for Big Banditos when they played in playoffs, and they now brought in Leo as their new mid laner, but otherwise they keep all their players. It's a pretty consistent team. Going back here to look at the rest of this, the next thing is G7 Mirage. So this is actually another favorite I have for almost winning all Season 2 without even seeing the rest of the teams yet. They moved Elvis, their top laner, to support. He should bring a lot of presence down there in the bot lane, as he was a big contender for G7 up in that top lane. They remove Nutty Bars and Ares from their bot lane and their support positions. Both of those players were actually very strong players, and I'm hoping to see both of them come back for Season 2. We'll get to where Nutty Bars ended up here in a minute. And they bring in North to AD, who was the mid for Big Banditos. North was previously the AD carry for P4 Mercury before G7 sort of rebranded as a whole organization underneath G7. Things to note, though, they keep Best Turtle as their jungler, Ben. Really strong jungler, one of the best in the leagues, probably. And then they retain Trinity as their mid laner, who's a strong mechanical mid laner. They bring in Steel City Warrior as their top laner, who's a D1 top laner. That's a big reason why I have them sort of favored to win the whole thing. OL is very weak when it comes to the top lane role as a whole. And if I had to guess, Steel City Warrior can just sort of stomp over the rest of the teams if he really wanted to. Next, I want to talk about OE Country Roads. They removed Astris, Alcantos. The three members they retained were Zach is on Fire, Blue Caboose, Little Hops. They changed, they rebranded to In Bloom. They left the OE organization. And I know for a fact they are holding tryouts for Jungle Mid. I'm hoping to see this team come back strong and see what they can really bring heading into the next season for us here. Next team I want to discuss here, that's actually it for all of the playoff teams. Now I want to get into, we'll talk about relegation soon. The next one I want to talk about is Prey Storm. They came up sort of from Academy. They had a pretty good sweep throughout most of playoffs. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but it'll be interesting to see how an Academy team can hold up to some of the big dogs on top here, like G7, like Stratosphere, and even some of the mid-tier teams, such as Country Roads, now rebranded as In Bloom, or Big Banditos. So next up, I want to discuss some notable mentions for Premier rosters because we have the expansion tournament coming up. White Lightning is a team coming in that has Alcantos as their mid laner and their captain, I believe. We'll see how that team goes. Alcantos was on Country Roads as their mid laner going into playoffs, but he started out under P4 Uranus at the beginning of the season. And we'll see where he ends up taking his team and if they can get into the premier spot he's hoping for. I also believe Taco, one of our great OL admins, is also making a team, but I don't have any information about them, so I don't know anything player-wise. And again, for White Lightning, all I know is that Alcantos is on it. I believe the rest of the names none of us are going to know. So that's really all I have talking about our premier teams. But next I want to get into the promotion relegations for OL Season 1 that's coming up just this next week. It starts in about 2 days. So things to note here. We have 3 teams coming down from Premier that are being relegated. They were in the last spots in our Premier regular season. That is Let's Get This Bread, Zenith Esports, and Straight Off the Couch. Now, I want to talk about each of these teams individually. Let's Get This Bread, in my mind, is the strongest contender going into the promotion relegation matches. They did have a lot of roster changes, and you probably can see this on the last page, but they dropped Dr. Beat. Sasita moved to support. They dropped Rico. The only person they kept was Brinicles. And then Sasita also role swapping, very similar to Elvis, to support. They bring in Nutty Bars, AD, who was a big contender in OL Premier Playoffs, heading all the way to semifinals. X-Forge, a new jungler. I personally know I've played against X-Forge many times. He'll be a strong force on this team and should get them the win to get back into Premier. And then D-Dog coming in as our top lane. I personally don't know a lot about D-Dog, but I have seen him pop up on more than once, and I have played against him more than once, I believe. So I know he can be a strong contender, and we'll see how well he performs in this small tournament. Next up, I want to talk about Zenith. They also sort of rebranded their whole roster. They dropped everyone but their AD carry, Revtastic. They brought in Moist, Drops, Hollow, and Rito is Bronze 5. Now, I don't know anything about these players, to be honest with you. The only one I know is Drops. I've played against him many times. I know he was on a Premier roster for a while towards the end of the season. I don't remember which one. But I know that he can be a big force in each game, and I hope to see him step up and sort of help Zenith sort of find their place in the league, as they were our 9th place team. And our last place team from Premier was Straight Off the Couch, and they are doing something very admirable going into the next season, or going into this promotion tournament, which is they're not changing their roster at all. So we'll see how they stand up. And if you remember, Straight Off the Couch was undefeated in Academy at the start of the season, and they got the free auto promote when a team fell out. So ever since then, they sort of stuck to the bottom of Premier. Premier teams kind of dumpstered them, honestly. And I want to see how they can do now that they're fighting against these old Academy teams that they used to play against. Next up, I want to talk about the 3 Academy teams coming up. OE Chan is the first one to be mentioned. They were 2nd place overall in Academy. They got 3-0'd by Prey, and they don't have any roster changes coming in. And that's a big thing for me, for any team sort of coming into any tournament, whether it's expansion in the offseason. How much does a roster change? And, you know, like I said, rosters that mostly stay the same are going to keep some of that cohesion they had from Season 1. So it's good to see OE Chan keeping most of their roster the way it was for a majority of Season 1 coming into this tournament, hoping they can do well. Wildfire Eagles are probably the least favorite to win, in my opinion. I don't know much about their team, but they got 4th place, I do believe. They're just a worse version of OE Chan if you look at the way they play. And that's really all I have to say about them. We'll see how their matchup goes. Now I want to talk about Falcons. And Falcons, in my mind, are the favorites to come out of Academy other than Prey. They were able to take Prey to 5 games in the semifinals, which shows in my mind that they are more competent than OE Chan is. They have a strong jungler that really popped off in their 3rd place game, their 3rd place matchup against Eagles. But now I want to talk about each of their matchups individually. They have Bread versus Eagles. I favor Bread in this one. Honestly, both Zenith and Bread with their roster changes, it's hard to not favor those 2 teams, as they just brought in sort of some really big premier players, and we're going to see, you know, sort of how they do in these matchups against these Academy teams. But you know, it's hard to say. I would say the most wishy-washy matchup out of all of these 3, Bread versus Eagles, Zenith, Falcons, and Couch versus Chan, I would say Zenith versus Falcons is sort of the one that I don't know. Again, I think they both have strong junglers, so we'll just really see how it sort of plays out and which team shows up better on the day for that matchup. I give the favor to Bread. I put the favor on Zenith, even though I think it could really go 50-50. And then as for Couch versus Chan, I'm actually going to favor Chan in this matchup. I think Couch, not having changed their roster, while it is admirable, they clearly had a lot of issues at the end of the season and throughout the season as a whole. And we'll see if that does anything for them into OE Chan. So it'll be nice to see these 2 teams that were both in Academy at the beginning. Couch probably taking the better hand of that at the beginning of the season in Season 1. We'll see if Chan can sort of crawl back from that. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the OL expansion tourney. There are 2 premier spots open and 6 Academy spots when it plays out. Again, it's possible there are more premier spots that open up if a team drops out that was a premier team. We don't know that at this point. But otherwise, I'm going to leave you guys with some clips. Good luck to everyone playing in the promotion series, expansion tournament, and to anyone that's heading into Season 2. I look forward to seeing all you guys perform well. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.
It's for the side of Ember.
That's crazy. A cross-map ace only 13 minutes into the game with all this tower plating. It looked like Demon Monkey put down the Rift Herald in that top lane to try to
Oh, and a great ultimate, and another death from Alex Carino, actually. Little bit of an overstay, took a couple too many tower shots. Heal was also used, actually, to save Blazing Cake.
Yeah, so that Ignite, and I believe the Hecarim ulti as well being burned.
The Baron buff and the 4v5. This should possibly be the game here, with the huge lead that they have.
Oh my god.
Cody's dead. Alex Carino is a god. Holy damage.
A little bit of trade here. Blessing getting stunned up and blocked from the jump there, but now it looks like the stun comes out as well by Spacey. Spacey starting to go down again, getting incredibly low before they start to back away, but they don't even get a moment to notice to really stop here as more little auto attacks trade come out here. Spacey incredibly low, having to burn his corrupting pot to get the health back, but there it goes again. Blessing goes down there by the Poppy con. Potential of the collapse right here. They're looking for it.
Oh, Glacial Prison coming out, hitting Clever Tomato. Crescent Sweep is also used, but now Luna Del Rey is on the backline. They're able to just turn all of their damage onto Clever Tomato. The Zyra ultimate comes out, has to zone the entirety of Midnight off of their team. Maokai is still peeling for the front line. Murdoch has to go in, trying to get a trade kill. Medic is on the backline, full HP, takes out Prodigy. Now he changes his eyes to Terra, switches to I'm the Bro with his ultimate. Terra has to engage with the Twisted Advance, and now Medic's just going to shred him with his Q. Luna Del Rey trying to come up behind, but he realized this is a lost cause, and Medic is just slowly taking down this massive tree in the bot lane while Hamlet is taking mid. Oh,
And the fight
another
continues
healing.
even against this big tree.
Terra's
They'll probably be
passive
able to
is
take him down.
insane.
Oh my goodness.
Medic, he might actually be able to win
He's
this.
gonna
Medic
solo
does not
it?
have the healing reduction to do this, and Terra's is going to take the kill. Just straight up, a huge turnaround for Terra there.
Solid frozen arrow from Burgers and Fries to be able to pick him out in the jungle. Rek'Sai does come up forward,
Yeah,
actually.
Rek'Sai's a little bit low, has to flash out. Glacier Fissure lands on Nasus, and now all of the damage of Wildfire going down onto Eye of Down, instantly killing them. LeBlanc has to distortion away, not really to get any damage out, and now I believe 2 waves of super minions, plus the entire team of Wildfire are knocking on Zenith's base, and Zenith isn't really able to do anything to stop them. Finally, maybe engaging Paranoia coming down, but he's instantly Ring of Frost in and also falls. Caitlyn trying to do as much damage as possible. LeBlanc distortioning in. Dubs is so low, but Frozen Tomb is able to finish him off. Behemoth Void rushes Karma, and that is going to be the game for Wildfire 2-0 in this best-of-3 series.
Yep, 17 kills to 1. The TSM 2016 split score right there.
Mid tower looks like they might get engaged on, but now the members of SPK are pinched between 2 sides of Fruity. Rift Herald is at 4.6k. Corporate Bananas in the pit. I think they have to engage onto the Syndra. I've down Syndra engages. That's going to be the hero's entrance. Corporate Banana getting saved by the Shen W, and that's going to be Morgana going down. 2-man taunt coming in, and Drama doing his best to finish off Nox. I am down. Syndra is now dismounted, but Jurassic and Swift are still in the middle of the fight. That's going to be 1 kill going to Warpack. Jurassic is in tie up the game 1-1 in this best of 5. Sybil taking a couple extra tower shots, getting executed, but I don't think that changes anything. They should still be able to end here.
Yeah, I think with the
and Malphite, and I was like, that's
No.
not an argument. They both lose. Teleport coming in from Malphite. He is level 7, gets the flash ultimate into the Twitch. He doesn't have his bot lane to follow up. You get the teleport follow up from Big Pun. Is able to get this Ornhorn going. Does land on top of the Jinx. Now we got a binding onto the Heck Arm. He's not going to be able to go in quite yet. Light going huge with a lot of rockets. Oh my god, he's already brought down the back line. He's destroyed them in just a couple of auto attacks. Their fight is already lost. A fairly good ultimate by Trinity, but it just doesn't matter. Your team is getting shredded around you, and that is going to be
After he takes all of the harass as well. And at this moment, I think Shimmer's soloing Dragon. Yep, Dragon half HP. There is a ward, though, on the back of the pit, so they know that it's being done at the moment. Kit is kind of moving towards bot side, though, and opting for a gank instead of trying to prevent this Dragon fight happening both top and bot. Box is used to delay. Big Pun actually getting the solo kill, and now Bobo's here to try to take out Shimmer. He gets the Dragon, he falls for it.